Aloha. With this build, I wanted to jump off the last video and a previous video that I went in talking about the origins of evil and the origins of this psychosis that ultimately manifests into this inhumane consciousness that exists inside everybody who allows this inhumane consciousness to exist on a massive scale, on the macro scale, and trace back the origins of how the system, because you could imagine indigenous cultures living on their own, and in within obviously knowing that you're going to have a manifestation of evil within individuals no matter where you go. I mean, it's inside everybody. It's just a matter of whether or not that you take action on that, or you allow that to envelop your entire reality. You can see that on an individual basis, but what we are seeing now is the entire collective society who has been subjected to this inhumane, and you can even easily go into the word evil manifestation of this sort of what I'm calling with this video, and what I didn't this is going to be a reference to the Wetiko virus. The Wetiko virus is, and this is by no means going to be a comprehensive overview of what the Wetiko virus is. It's just going to be my perspective on how the Wetiko virus relates to the psycho-spiritual separation that exists inside the collective consciousness of everybody, that also connects to the physical manifestation of believing that you live on a globe, believing that you are a manifestation of nothingness, believing that you are more of a manifestation of animalistic characteristics that are being preached to you with this evolution theory, this heliocentric model, and the way society is promoted through the mainstream media, and these definitions of human nature that include bombing other nations and just the most heinous and inhumane actions. We are being trained to believe that we are more animals than we are human, not to even mention the fact that we don't even go into what humanity actually is. The same way the history books and the history classes in your public education system don't go any further back than the 1600s. Why does our history only go back so far? Why does the information that's promoted by this system only go back so far? There has to be a reason why. And one of the main reasons that I'm seeing why is that there has been this taking over of our human consciousness by the Wetiko virus, and has manifested into our reality as this greed and genocide and colonialism and what they're called manifest destiny, and this so-called democracy, so-called capitalism, all these new forms in this Western so-called civilization. What I'm saying is that, and I'm not the only one, the indigenous people said it as well, that, and I'll read this while I'm on this note, so you can see it as I read it. Columbus was a Wetiko. He was mentally ill or insane, the carrier of a terribly contagious psychological disease, the Wetiko psychosis. The native people he described were sane people with a healthy state of mind. Sanity or healthy normality among humans and other living creatures involves a respect for other forms of life and other individuals. I believe that is the way people have lived and should live. The Wetiko psychosis and the problems it creates have inspired many resistance movements and efforts at reform or revolution. Unfortunately, most of these efforts have failed because they have never diagnosed the Wetiko as an insane person whose disease is extremely contagious. So this is just one website that I'm using to reference for people who are new to this perspective, because a lot of the times we don't find out what are the deeper layers of definitions or interpretations of stuff like evil. A lot of the times we get hung up in the mainstream religious interpretations or the mainstream political interpretations of what evil is. Like when the American dream political scene tells you that, oh, well, evil is manifested in terrorism, and terrorism is the Muslim faith, and we have to go over there and fight the war on terrorism. So they generate the Al Qaeda, they generated ISIS, they generate these villains in your own mind, like Saddam Hussein, and then after the act of taking over the land is done, there's nothing else that you can do, because you just have to stand behind your president. You stand behind your flag. You stand behind your man. You stand behind your so-called civilizations. These are the phrases that are injected into the mainstream consciousness that people don't really question. And when you see it from that perspective and you understand that, you could potentially, and in my perspective, could actually see that the Wetiko virus isn't what the system is telling you is the villain. The Wetiko virus is the system that's telling you what to believe in the first place. So you have all these mainstream religions, you have the political scene, you have the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex. These are all manifestations of what the indigenous people were already calling the Wetiko virus, and how it's loosely translated into evil of today. And then when you jump into the consciousness of the evil consciousness has to hide the fact that it is a manifestation of the evil consciousness. So this is a sickness. This is a psycho-spiritual virus. It's a psycho-spiritual disease. What I'm saying is that in order to hide the reality that this psycho-spiritual virus is existing inside of everybody, it has to create another consciousness for people to believe in that makes it seem benevolent. So you have the creation of the university system. In the benevolent scene, it's pawning itself off as developing the intelligence. But we already know, and saying that it's the evolutionary peak of reality, but we already know that the evolution theory is made up. We know that the Big Bang theory is made up. Gravity theory, relativity theory, heliocentrism theory. These are all theories that are made up. You have to see that that's the ultimate evil. It's the ultimate evil when the system itself has created a sense of benevolence in the hearts and minds of people. In the hearts of minds and people, in order to maintain its existence in your psycho-spiritual consciousness. Since the indigenous people were aware of this and had a name for it, the Wetiko virus had to, in order for it to survive, it had to develop another system, another consciousness, this synthetic consciousness that creates a mimic version of what the indigenous people were talking about, but includes a distraction that also includes the Hegelian dialectic. So you have the distraction of Satan, you have the distraction of the most evil villain, you have the distraction of the Bible, the mainstream religions, and you also have the faith within those mainstream religions, which is just a generated system, a generated system that was designed to hide the ultimate evil that actually created these half-ass, completely hollowed out. This is why the Bible is so you feel a sense of uncertainty about it. This is how I feel. Like yes, obviously there's good things in there, but there's some horrible shit in the Bible, and that goes with all of these mainstream religions. And if it was coming from the essence of the Most High, there wouldn't be that insecurity there. There wouldn't be that uncertainty there. It would be an ultimate truth. It's kind of like love. You don't have an uncertain sort of feel about it. It just overtakes you. There's something you can't explain it. Like even the word love is just so shallow and weak. So when people just accept something like the mainstream Christian faith in the Bible and just say that's it, that's the word of God, you're automatic, and then don't at all entertain what the indigenous people and the people that predate these mainstream religions, they don't even go into what that is. When that happens, I have some serious questions. This is where I'm at right now, and I've been for the last few years. It's like, well, I already know that the indigenous people of this land, there's a reason why their belief systems, their spirituality, their cosmology has been hidden. There's a reason why. And when you go into the reasons why, you start to uncover many of their interpretations of this reality that expose the reality that we are subjected to today. So when that is known, then you have to also piece together, wait a second, if this is existing this way, and these people were exposing the actions of this so-called new world, this so-called Western civilization, well, what else were they really aware of? So to stay focused for this video, I wanted to just share the observation of the indigenous, specifically the Native Americans. What they explained was the manifestation of evil, because the commercial version, the mainstream version of evil, is interpreted through the eyes and the filters of mainstream religions, local news, politics, the university system, and whatever nonsense that comes from that whole Western mindset. And if we don't go into it, if we're basing our beliefs and our observations of this reality on the system that created the problems in the first place, then you are doing nothing but balling yourself up into a ball of confusion that has been prepositioned for you to fall within. The same way that people actually think that they are fighting evil when they vote Democrat against Republican. You can go all the way, expand that all the way out to the maximum scale into the Western so-called civilization. Zoom all the way out. And it's easy to see when you have people like Alex Jones who are constantly going into this superhero type of mentality that's based upon 1776 and the patriotic sort of Americana reality. He's nothing but a public a history book for the public education system. And what makes him more valid in people's eyes is the fact that he talks about some fringe information in the conspiracy theory. They just created a villain within the villain. That's what Alex Jones represents. InfoWars represents the villain creating another villain within the villain storyline so that you don't actually see the system itself as the ultimate evil. That's what Alex Jones represents. That's what even the New Age represents. When it creates, instead of creating a villain within the villain program, the New Age program has developed a superhero within the villain program. It also generates all these other villains within the villainous program. Because when you're not addressing the system of Wetiko, the virus itself, the psychospiritual virus, and you're just, accepting, oh, we should just get better, be one with humanity, be this, oh, take over with 1776, we're gonna beat you, globalists. You see that they are still inhabiting that psychospiritual program because they're not going to the depths. They're just creating another prescription drug to deal with the situation and never go into the cancer, the disease, the virus itself. So it's very easy to see how this program is protecting itself. The thing is, which most people don't really go into, and I mentioned this in the last video, why it was so fucked up that a lot of these mainstream flat earthers, they just use the images of the indigenous people. This is why I was saying it's so dangerous and disrespectful at the same time to just use the cosmology and the images of the not globe earth and never go into the depths of the meaning of what they actually represented, what they were actually talking about. See, the flat earth, the mainstream flat earth community is no different than what I was just saying with the Alex Jones and the New Age community. It only takes you to a certain point. And that's the whole thing. And that's like, as I said, it's just these are just stepping stones, because ultimately it's not supposed to take you to beyond a certain point, because that's your personal responsibility. The only way that you could dispel the Wetiko virus is if you do it yourself. If you face that evil yourself, just like in a dream space, if you constantly run away from your nightmares, those nightmares will inhabit your empty spaces. It will inhabit your subconscious, and you will never be able to actually live through your own manifestation. You will be living with a parasite, with a virus actually, and in the long run, that virus will become more of your reality than you. Hence, the Western civilization and all this other stuff that tells you this is what humanity is about, tells you this is what civilization is about. But we all know it's all bullshit. It's all designed to protect itself. We all know this. So what I'm doing with this video is tracing it back to what the indigenous interpreted is what they call it, the Wetiko virus, is psychospiritual virus or parasite. Now, when Christopher Columbus, this is another kind of that adds credibility to it. When Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and a lot of the people used that whole storyline in order to add credibility to the globe theory. So this is how the Colombian Wetiko psychosis connects directly to the globe model. Once the Western civilization wanted to activate, it wanted to go live. Once the Wetiko virus figured out a system of how to go live through people, it had to develop a new form of cosmology. So here comes the heliocentric program. It had to develop a new form of religion. So here enter in the Jesuits and the Columbian, or the Christian and Catholic faith that could be seen as like a spiritual attack on North and South America and eventually the entire world. But to focus on what happened, you can see like in reality, you can see how this Wetiko virus went, because like I said, in order for something to manifest in the psyche, it has to first manifest in your spiritual body. So it goes from the spiritual body to the psychological body and then the physical body. The indigenous people were aware of the balances of nature. They were aware of, they were dancing it out. They were showing, this is what these Hopi dances were about. This is what these indigenous dances and ceremonies were about across the earth. They were about keeping the stories alive so you do not become subject to something like the Wetiko virus, because as long as you're aware of it, it's not going to be able to lock its tentacles into your reality and eventually suck the life out of you to where you're just a hollowed out version of yourself. You're not even yourself anymore. You've been shrunken down to the 0.00001% of you, which is totally insecure, unsure of yourself, don't know anything. You don't know what the soul is. You don't know what the humanity is. You don't know what earth is. You don't know your relationship to the balances of nature. You don't know any of this stuff. The mainstream reality is just based upon worshiping Western civilization, worshiping NASA, worshiping politics, worshiping technology, worshiping all of these things that are a manifestation of the original Wetiko virus, the original idea of the new world. And in order to maintain that, you have people who are just accepting this. See, when Columbus came over to the Americas, and then all these people came over, they made an agreement with the Wetiko virus to not look at the humanity, to not expose the inhumanity of the actions of the Columbian era, of the Western so-called civilization, of manifest destiny. They signed a spiritual contract with the Wetiko virus. Today, the people who are just constantly protecting and defending this Western so-called civilization, they are the manifestations of the Wetiko virus. And like I said previous, this is not about black or white. This is about right and wrong. This is about anybody can activate this evil. Anybody can be subjected to the Wetiko virus. But the people who are consciously accepting this inhumane universe, this inhumane so-called civilization, you are a manifestation of the ultimate evil. And the ultimate evil isn't going to manifest in a dark suit with all these weapons and all this. I mean, you could go into the fact that that's actually what the America or the United States represents. That's how, but inside each person, in the person, in order for the Wetiko virus to manifest itself, it has to remain hidden. It has to remain silent, because if you see what it is, your natural humanity will attack it. Your immune system will attack that Wetiko virus just from you paying attention to it, just from you seeing that it exists. It has to exist in the dark emptiness of your lack of understanding, and overstanding of your reality. This is the reason why you have no connection with nature. You have an upside down and backwards version of a connection with the universe, the sun, the moon, the stars, and your family and your culture. It's empty. It's designed to be that way. It's on purpose, because the Wetiko needs you to be hollowed out. So what it does is it creates this artificial version of superheroes versus the villain. So you have, in Christianity, you have the Jesus program versus the Satan program. So you created this spiritual Hegelian dialectic. Then you have this psychological Hegelian dialectic, where it's so the spiritual Hegelian dialectic was developed with these mainstream religions, and that is also designed to hide the origination, the actual true evil, which is beyond those mainstream religions. So your spiritual interpretations of this reality are locked down by the mainstream religions and those belief systems, those Hegelian dialectics that get created within those programs. The psychological Wetiko manifestation comes in the form of Columbus calling the indigenous people across the earth in this storyline in the Americas, calling them primitive and savage. And they just need to be given this freedom. They need to be given the freedom of the new world, of manifest destiny, of Western so-called civilization. So you have them priding themselves against the evil that was you. You were evil if you were an indigenous person and you had a connection with the earth and everything else. You were the evil, and they made themselves out to be the superhero. This is what opened up the door. So that's the psycho and the spiritual. This is what opened up the door inside the individual people, the Europeans and everybody else who came over here to suck the land, suck the life at the expense of the indigenous people. It opened up the door for them to think that they were benevolent when they arrived into the Americas. They thought that they were doing something good, where in fact the system itself was consistently genociding, poisoning, and destroying the natural connections that people were inhabiting just by their very existence. What they were doing for hundreds, thousands, and you could possibly go into hundreds of thousands of years, or even longer than that. So this is how the doorway opened within the individuals to allow the Wetiko virus to come in. And since the Wetiko virus was accepting, since the people were accepting the inhumane actions of this evil system and thinking that it was benevolent, that is what set up the platform for the physical, the total dominance of the entire earth plane reality. So it went from the spiritual with religions, it went to the psychological with the demonizing of the ancestors, the demonizing of the indigenous people. And now it has activated in the actual physical reality as total dominance across the earth plane. And it's allowed to exist in there because there are enough people who have opened themselves up to accepting this Western civilization that is largely inhumane and taken to the umpteenth degree is the manifestation of the ultimate evil. So when you have all of these kind of like things that are in the way of people realizing that it's the ultimate evil, like Christianity, the Jesus program, the New Age program, the Bible, when you have all that, it creates this insecurity, and this insecurity exists inside the individual that will not allow. It will keep them from going any further, because the only thing that they have to pride themselves in is what the virus itself gave to them. The virus came over here with Columbus and gave the indigenous people the Bible, gave them that idea of religion. And now it's just accepted as that is the superhero, because the Wetiko has taken over. It's taken over the people. So it's the ultimate evil that's taken over. This is the actual reason why everything in this human society is inhumane. It's because the people themselves over generations upon generations have been separated from their original interpretation. We forgot the stories. The stories have been overtaken by new stories. They've been replaced by new realities. And when that happens, when people think that they're doing good and they're actually doing evil, it's a double expansion of that evil. See, when people are just doing evil, largely it's because people they don't even realize it. If they're just unconsciously doing it, it's not open as far as it could go. When you take good and you turn that into evil, now you've actually like multiplied evil times what the 99th percentile of good is. And that's how this stuff can last so long. This is why people are living in these societies and thinking like, oh yeah, well, the American way, we just got to spread that freedom. You're actually saying, let's spread the ultimate evil. This is what Donald Trump represents. This is what with his whole Make America Great Again and the whole the university system, Alex Jones. This is what this Western civilization represents. And the people who are accepting large chunks of this society, the society's belief systems, are actually doing more harm than the system itself. Because you are setting up the anchor point for the system to continue to grow. So I'll read this part because people probably already read the first part. And I wanted to leave this just kind of quick, so I'll end it on this, because if you've already been following a lot of my videos and you already know like where I'm coming from, and I did make a video on this. This was actually the last chapter in the When Flat Earth Goes Mainstream videos, because I felt that tied everything in, starting in the beginning of talking about how the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments actually generated this paid slave mentality. It created this idea where you think you're not a slave because you're a civilian now, and the slaves were all freed and all this other stuff. But no, you were actually you're just a paid slave now, and everybody is a slave now. So that was where I was saying like the act, that was probably like how I'm thinking in my head, the fifth gear of the Wetiko virus. And now it's just in cruise control. It's been in cruise control since the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, because that's when people started to worship the Constitution as the ultimate truth and started to worship the American dream and the American way as the ultimate freedom. That was where I was seeing that was the beginning. And there's still people in the flat earth community still thinking that way, still thinking that this system wasn't meant to be this way. They think it's broken and they think flat earth is going to fix it. You're living in a dream. You're living in an illusion, and they have no root structures to actually interpret what this ultimate evil is. They don't know. They've never been privy to this information. They don't know what's going on here. And ultimately, when you've been not knowing for so long, you actually start living a life where you don't care. You become hopeless. You become helpless. And you just accept whatever the Wetiko consciousness gives to you. So they give you all of these things to make you think that it's benevolent, but you're actually worshiping the ultimate evil. So what I'm saying is that the heliocentric program is the physical in your mind. You actually think Mars, Venus, Mercury, and all the planets out there are physical beings. That is a manifestation of an ultimate evil, because your planets are now dead. Your stars are dead. Your sun is just a ball of lava. It's dead. It's nothing. The moon is just a dead dirt ball that reflects light off of the ball of lava. I mean, what the hell? Look how childish and ridiculous and empty this shit is. You have no connection to the sun, no connection to the moon, no connection to the stars, no connection to your ancestors and the wandering light bodies that are what we call the planets. You have no connection to the darkness that is the fabric for those stars. You have no connection to the earth, no connection to the water, your food. You're eating death, worshiping death. When you see all these bacon commercials and you see all this, you're eating life when you're I don't even want to go into this right now, but you know where I'm coming from. This entire system is designed to worship evil, to worship and be afraid of at the same time, to worship consciously the death by eating it, eating your balances of life and just shitting them out as if, it's just meant for you to just do that and that's it. And then subconsciously, you're worshiping the virus that is the ultimate evil. And and because it's existing, this is why you're shut off from your dreams. If you had people who were connected with their dreams, and I've said this in previous videos in many different ways, but this is why your dreams are so blocked from reality. You don't know what the dreams are. You have no connection with your subconscious reality. So you just leave it in the background. You act like it doesn't matter. And what I'm saying is that in your dreams, one thing that does happen in your dreams is that you do face the ultimate evil, because you are your maximum everything in your subconscious, everything. And when you're in that space, you are going to be faced with the extremes of everything if you choose to. If you choose to turn away like children run away from nightmares, you will eventually create a block. You will create a blackness where you will just live. You will choose to live in a world that acts like, or is totally ignorant of that reality. That reality, I'm saying, is the ultimate evil. So what the Western society has done is it's created a new world for you to live in, thinking that it's benevolent, thinking that it's ultimate goodness, but actually inhabiting a space that is a manifestation of the ultimate evil. And it exists in your spirit, in your psyche, and now it's being revealed for what it is on a physical scale. So now what's happening individually on the micro and the macro scale, people are starting to realize the evil nature of the Western concept. And they're now going from the physical interpretations of this manifestation of evil and slowly moving into the psychological interpretation of this manifestation of evil, and then going into the spiritual manifestation of this interpretation of evil. And as it goes down, as it manifests from the spirit to the psyche to your body. In order to clear that, you have to start out with what is obvious, and what's obvious a lot of the times is the physical, because it's here, it's tangible, and time/consciousness moves slow enough to where you can conceptualize what's what. So people are unveiling the physical, and then eventually they'll start unveiling the psyche, and then eventually the spirit, and then work your way back down into interpreting how the system actually works, from the spirit to the psyche to the from the soul to the mind to the body. But first, you have people in the physical realm of consciousness still defending the physical Wetiko realm of consciousness, still defending this American dream, still defending these mainstream religions as if they're the ultimate end-all reality. And then you have one of the main things that helps people see the biggest fucking lie out there, flat earth, being caked on with this Christian faith shit in the first Flat Earth International Conference. So right then and there, I mean, there should be a million red flags flying all over the place. You had the Wetiko virus invited to the Flat Earth Conference. And what I've been saying, and what I have been saying, is that same mentality, that psycho-spiritual virus, exists inside of the people who are aware of the lie, the ultimate deception, and just soften it up. The same way people soften up the American way of genocide and dominance over nature itself. Just the same way people accept Western so-called civilization as benevolent, The same thing has happened and is happening with Flat Earth, who are just accepting the deception of heliocentrism as just this soft little thing. No, they completely disconnected you from nature. Not only Earth nature, but the sun, the stars, the moon, and the universe itself. We've been completely disconnected from that. And then now it's all the way shrunk down to, let's just get a flat earth license plate. And then they're setting people up for the same kind of consciousness that the history books in public education system tells you what history is about. That's the same kind of mentality where I was saying that the system, it only goes so far. Like Alex Jones only goes to 1776. The New Agers are still stuck in that Hegelian dialectic of now, instead of the bad guy in reference to Trump in Alex Jones. Okay, so the bad guy in the mainstream media is Donald Trump. So you get that Hegelian dialectic. In reference to Alex Jones in the conspiracy circles, you have the Hegelian dialectic that says the good guy is Trump and the bad guys are the globalists. So you got people getting trapped in there. Then in the aggressive progressives, you have that's just an expansion of like TYT. That's just an expansion of the original Hegelian dialectic of Democrats versus Republican. Now you got progressives. Now you made it a three-team Hegelian dialectic. So it's a Hegelian trialectic. That's what that is. A Hegelian trialectic where you have TYT and Bernie Sanders and the aggressive progressives against the dumb Democrats and the dumb Republicans. So now you have the Hegelian trialectic, and that's tight. I never heard that before. So anyway, in the New Age community, the Hegelian dialectic that you have is the love and light star seeds of the universe who come from these other dimensions down here to fight the evils of the reptilians and the interdimensional evil spirits. They just have different words for the Wetiko virus. But the thing is, just like Flat Earth wants to just protect this system, mainstream Flat Earth, they just want to let the mainstream take over. The New Age wants to do the same shit. It's like, we just need to fix the system. We just need to fix the system and fight the reptilians. And so David Icke is doing the same shit. They just make that storyline more vibrant. And you never get to go into the depths of what actually happened here, because you have all these different versions of reality that are telling you this is the only thing that you need to focus on. This is the only thing that you need to believe in. That's what trapped me in the New Age program. And then before that, I was yelling at the banks in the Occupy movement, and that trapped me there. And before that, I was literally in the military, and that trapped me there. It's like, you're fighting for freedom against the evil forces of terrorism. And then before that, it was just like, you're in school, so you have to just you have these systems that grow with your consciousness. You fall subject to each one when you just accept it over and over and over again. So I just wanted to put this video out so people can see the correlation between the ultimate evil and what we accept as benevolent. And also back that up, anchor that into what the indigenous people that predate all of this Western interpretations of what evil looks like, they already had an interpretation of what's been going on. And since people have demonized them as just primitive and savage pieces of shit that don't know anything, they're just a bunch of people with no bones in their noses that just, cut off heads and rolled them down the pyramids. That's all the pyramids were for. It was just for evil people or this and that. So yeah, what their spirituality and their psychoanalytical interpretations of this universe, it don't even matter. They're just primitive and savage people. When you accept the New Age, New World version of intellect and spirituality, you are accepting the nature of the Wetiko virus. And until you dispel that from your reality, you're not even going to allow, you're still going to be playing checkers. So these are just the interpretations of what I've been explaining in previous videos of the difference between playing checkers and then thinking you're playing chess, and then still being caught up in playing in a linear chess game and not realizing the three-tiered chess game of your soul, your mind, and your body. So these are the levels of evil exist on each one, and the people who are playing checkers, they're just locked into that space and don't even know. They ultimately don't even care because their consciousness isn't vibrant enough. It's been shrunk down so much. Your humanity has been shrunk down into the 0.0001% of reality so much that you don't even know what empathy is. You don't know what compassion is. You don't know what humanity is. You don't know what culture and connection is. In fact, not only do you not know what it is, you don't care about it. And even beyond that, you want to fight other people who do know what their culture is, who do know what their entire connection to this nature and reality is. That is the ultimate expansion of the Wetiko ultimate evil virus, is to stop and stomp out other people's connection to benevolence, to the beauty of the balances of this reality, in order to protect your own virus, your own parasitic interpretation of reality. And that is the mainstream interpretation of this reality. That's what's happening on the local news. That's what's happening in every single news outlet, including and especially these comedic interpretations, these late night talk shows. That it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And the further and further and further away you lock somebody in that 0.0001% of their reality, the 99% of that reality, that point all the way to the umpteenth degree, looks more and more realistic, looks more and more like your reality. So once you are taken to that the upper tier of the 99th percentile of being empty, that's when technology, the actual systems like transhumanism and simulation theory and all this stuff can be inserted into you, and then you can now become a robot. So now they can enter in like they can install like a CD-ROM drive inside your body, and then now you go out to Best Buy and you buy the Wetiko software, and then you put it inside your hard drive, inside your CD-ROM in your body, and now you have all of this in, like you have Google inside your head now, and now you think that you're the smartest, most evolved monkey in the universe, and that is the ultimate. That's what the ultimate manifestation of the Wetiko virus maintaining itself as God over you. They were and are kings over you right now. Kings and queens with Hollywood and politics and all this other stuff. When the Wetiko manifests within people who claim to be kings and queens, look at the Queen of England, look at Donald Trump, look at all these people who are just benefiting, who are just loving this genocidal system, this colonial consciousness. They just love it. That is the psychological manifestation of the Wetiko. That is where they become kings and queens. In order to become gods over you, they have to install a new relationship to your spirit, to your reality. This is what heliocentrism was. This is what the mainstream religions are, and this new version of it is transhumanism and this interdimensional quantum interpretation of reality, string theory, simulation theory. This is just a new religion, basically a scientism religion, to make you go further and further into emptying yourself out. And why it's emptying you out is because the more empty that you are, the more space is available inside your reality for the Wetiko to take over. That's what the indigenous people were saying when they were saying Columbus was pretty much a manifestation of the Wetiko virus. And now you have entire populations, cultures, people who are thinking the pop culture mainstream reality, that is the cultural manifestation of the Wetiko virus. So I'll read this and I'll close this out because I've pretty much shared my interpretations of how this relates directly to a lot of these mainstream interpretations of forward progress and truth. That's why I said in the last videos, talk a message to the truthers and the flat earth community, is because largely your truth is still, a lot of these so-called truthers are still locked into they're still talking about their truth is based upon the Wetiko virus. So let me read this and I'll close it out. Psychoanalysis. The origin of Wetiko is the human psyche. Psychologically speaking, shadow projection is at the very root of Wetiko disease. Shadow projection is a process in which we split off from and project out our own darkness onto others. This is what's happened when Columbus said that the indigenous people were primitive and savage and they should be slaughtered. That was the beginning of that. It is our misguided attempt at a final solution to the problem of the evil within ourselves which actually deprives us of the capacity to deal with the evil. So it keeps us from going into the depths of seeing what it actually is. It has to remain hidden. Projecting the shadow opens the door and invites in the vampiric entity of Wetiko to make itself at home in the most intimate spaces of our own psyche. It is through the dynamic of shadow projection that the Wetiko bug digs in and entrenches itself within our psyches, where it is then able to commandeer the executive function of the psyche to its own ends. When we project the shadow, we unwittingly become a conduit for evil to possess us from behind, beneath our conscious awareness, and to act itself out through us. This is what's happening within individuals in the American dream and the New World Order, the New Age reality, the Western so-called civilization, the colonialism, and all that. All of that is designed. That is the way it's being acted out. Through us, and even more through individuals walking around in their suit and ties or walking around like they're thugs with weapons. You're just loving this system. So where am I at? When there is mutual shadow projection between individuals, groups, or nations, each side has an unconscious investment in the other playing out the projected evil, so as to prove their own self-righteous innocence, a dynamic which becomes self-reinforcing and continually feeds the polarization in the field. Shadow projection, as it collectively plays out en masse on the world stage, is an outer reflection of the initial process within ourselves of our benighted effort to exterminate our own darkness. When shadow projection happens en masse, it is as if the archetype of evil emits its toxic radioactivity underground through the shared unconscious of the collective and manifests collectively as destructive psychic epidemics. In shadow projection, we attempt to master and experience our power over the internal condition that originally proclaimed our powerlessness to ourselves, not by becoming conscious, but by unconsciously identifying with, becoming, and then acting out the power to externally destroy. This is where the physical manifestation of this comes, where the entire Western civilization tells you it's spreading freedom, but it's actually spreading evil. It's spreading the Wetiko virus. Unconsciously acting out unbound power without restraint is our perverse way of defending against the internal breakthrough of feelings of helplessness. Evacuating and relocating our inner darkness outside of ourselves by demonizing the other seemingly protects us from feeling our vulnerability and pain. This is what I said with the relationship between Columbus, what Columbus told the world about the indigenous people. Our inner anxiety about our existential power to be attempts to resolve itself in the power to act free from restraint. In an unmediated expression of our disempowered inner condition, our unconscious acting out does not surmount the need for compulsive repetition, however, but rather assures it. Wetiko's modus operandi, their MO, becomes to root out and kill everything that feels tender, vulnerable, and alive within themselves, thus systematically murdering anything and everything within them that could possibly melt or produce a crack in the ice that encases their heart. Because full-blown Wetikos are soul murderers who continually recreate the ongoing process of killing their own soul, they are reflexively compelled to do this to others. For what the soul does to itself, it can't help but do to others. In a perverse inversion of the golden rule, instead of treating others how they would like to be treated, Wetikos do unto others what it was done to them. The Wetiko is simply a living link in a timeless vampiric lineage of abuse. Full-blown Wetikos induce a dream up others to experience what it is like to be in the part of themselves which they have split off from and denied, and are thus not able to consciously experience the part of themselves that has been abused and vampirized. In playing this out, Wetikos are transmitting and transferring their own depraved state of inner deadness to others in a perverse form of trying to deal with their own suffering. Paradoxically, Wetikos both try to destroy others' light as it reminds them of what they've killed in themselves, while simultaneously trying to appropriate the light for themselves. Wetiko disease is an expression of the convincing illusion of the separate self gone wild, bewitched by the intrinsic projective tendencies of their own mind. Full-blown Wetikos are unconsciously doing the very thing they are reacting to and accusing other people of doing. This is the war on terrorism. The war on terrorism is terrorism. Projecting the shadow onto others, they will accuse others of projecting the shadow onto them. This is when you talk about a lot of this information, and probably even in the comment section, people are going to talk about, they say, oh, you're just doing this. Aren't you just doing this? Somebody said some stupid shit like that in the last video. I didn't even want to comment on that, talking about, oh, well, you're doing exactly what you're, man, shut the hell out of me. Shit. That's so silly. Some people, they're just saying what they're saying. No, you're a part. You missed the whole damn point. What I said was they are more dangerous. They're more dangerous than the actual people. And since they are more dangerous by promoting themselves as being benevolent, but they are actually promoting a malevolent type of consciousness, they are more dangerous. That's why I said it needs to be addressed, because they are not doing their own thing and talking about their own perspectives. They're actually expanding the Wetiko virus through the flat earth community, through the new age community, through the conspiracy truther community, and don't even realize it. That's why I address these individuals who are just lightening up this perspective of the ultimate evil. Where did I leave off? To use an extreme but prototypical example, it is like someone screaming that you're killing them as they kill you. If their insanity is reflected back to them, they think it is the mirror that is insane. Suffering from a form of psychic blindness that believes itself to be sightedness, full-blown Wetikos project out their own unconscious blindness and imagine that others, instead of themselves, are the ones who are not seeing. Governed by the insane, self-perpetuating logic of fear and paranoia, those taken over by the disease fear that if they don't attack and rule over others, attack and rule over others. That's what this system wants to rule over others. People who are speaking in reference to the Wetiko are attacking the Wetiko, but not to rule over others. The system attacks other people in order to rule over others for their own expense. It's a completely different consciousness. What are they? Taken over by the disease. They fear that if they don't attack and rule over others, they are in danger of being attacked and ruled over themselves. In their convoluted, upside-down, flawless, illogic, Wetikos react to their own projections in the world as if they objectively exist and are other than themselves, thinking that they themselves have nothing to do with creating that to which they are reacting. Someone fully taken over by Wetiko bug is like a kitten endlessly reacting to her reflection in the mirror as if it's another kitten separate from and other than herself. The evil we see in the full-blown Wetikos is a reflection of our own evil. If we don't recognize this, we will just be projecting our shadow onto them. We are then guilty of the very same thing, shadow projecting, we are essentially reacting to and of which we are accusing them. The term Wetiko is a Cree term, Wendigo on Ojibwe and Wentiko in Powhatan, which, to quote Forbes, refers to an evil person or spirit who terrorizes other creatures by means of terrible evil acts. Wetikos are the human instruments for transpersonal spirit of evil to terrorize the world. Terrorize the world. In Wetiko disease, we unwittingly become drafted into being foot soldiers in the war, not on, but of and for terror. The Wetiko parasite feeds on and harvests the emotions of fear and terror. Terror is the essence of insidious, illusory illogic. In the Wetiko disease, the psyche takes the terror that haunts it from within, and it, in an attempt to master it, unwittingly becomes taken over by it, thus becoming an instrument of terror in the world. We have then become the thing we most feared, creatures of the European nightmare world, as we psychologically terrorize ourselves as well as terrorizing the world at large. Wetiko is the bug which feeds the experience of terror within our mind and out in the world, fueling one of its more prominent manifestations in our world today, the global war on terror. I will link this article in this video. You can see it for yourself. Please share it. Please share this video. Please have discussions on this. Share your perspectives in the comment section, whatever it is. Whatever you feel, please go on and do that, because I've been speaking about this for a while now. Like I said, I didn't come into this flat earth information first. This came way later. I was actually speaking about the ultimate evil, talking about this Western interpretation of reality. And this is why I get sort of kind of like not confused. I can see how it works, but it is really kind of an extreme thing to see so-called flat earthers talk about how everything that you've been told is a lie, but don't want to go into beyond just the earth story. They don't want to go into the human story and how the indigenous people were who were actually writing down, they were passing on the knowledge of the ultimate evil. They don't want to go into that. They just want to kind of put it on the side. And what I'm saying is that largely, whether they're doing it consciously or subconsciously, that mentality exists in order to protect itself, just like this article was talking about. So the Wetiko virus exists inside. You better believe it exists inside the flat earth community. The ultimate evil exists inside every single community that hasn't acknowledged this psycho-spiritual virus. So thank you for joining me. Please share, like, and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.